Hello, I'm going to show you how I make sourdough. One of my gals was wanting to start making sourdough and I thought, do you know what, I'll just film it. So the first thing you need is starter. I've made her some starter. You could go through the process of making your own starter, but to be honest, it'll put you off making sourdough. Just get some from, if you know someone that makes sourdough, they'll have a starter, take a bit of theirs, feed it over a couple of days, weeks, and then you'll be good to go. You'll have enough, or you can even buy it. You can buy some from San Francisco. I saw one of my gals making her sourdough with that starter. So excellent, and one you just keep feeding it and it'll last forever if you want it to. So the starter, I keep quite a big tub because I take 150 grams from this, and I don't want to be faffing about feeding it for days before I start the process. So I keep quite a big tub of starter, and that just stays in my fridge. The night before it comes out, I get my scales, so grab yourself some digital scales. Everything's going to be measured in grams today. Thank you to Be Nourished by Nature giving me that tip, as she taught me. So for your starter the night before, pop it on the scales, zero it, and then you're going to pop some water in. So 100 grams of water will go in there. Filter it, because we want to filter out all of that chlorine that we don't want, disrupting the fermentation process, and also at room temperature. So don't pop your filter in the fridge as well. So we need it to be able to catalyse as well. Okay, so 100 grams of water goes in, filtered water goes in, and then you put in 100 grams of your rye flour. So it doesn't need to be rye, depending on the starter that you've got. I use a rye starter so that I can also make rye bread. So I put in 100 grams of rye flour as well, give it a nice good mix up, and then I leave it out overnight, and then it does its thing. So this is a really important process where it does its thing, and you can tell because it'll be a bit smelly, all the bubbles are going there. So it rises and it's really bubbly and thick. So you'll know because it looks so different from when it's not been doing its thing and letting off all of those lovely stinky gases. Okay, so the next day it should be ready to go. What we do after that is we take, well, the first thing I would do actually, I suppose, is no I don't, I'm talking absolute nonsense. Yes, we'll take a bowl and we're going to pop in 150 grams of our starter. So make sure you've washed your hands because you're going to get a little bit messy here. Zero your scales and pop in your 150 grams. So it is a little bit disgusting. It's something that you'll be getting used to. I love it actually, it smells really funky, but it's definitely not like baking a cake. But it tastes delicious. So I've got about, exactly 150 in there. Nice one. Okay, so that's 150 of my starter, and I never remember this off the top of my head. So I just keep a list on my fridge, and it starts with 150 gram starter. Water, 300. It's actually really easy to remember, but my brain. So I just zero again after my 150 grams of starters in there. Zero my scales. I'm going to pop in 300 of my filtered water. Again, it's not been in the fridge. This water just stays out of the fridge, so it's always at room temperature. Popping it in till it's about 300. Oh, getting water everywhere. Just classic me cooking style. So that's about 300, and I'm just going to give it a little mix around so that it kind of combines. It's not going to be fully combined, but that's absolutely fine. So this is essentially your wet starter, and what we are then going to do is add in our dry ingredients once we've given that a lovely big mix there. So shimmy it around a little bit more. Then we're going to pop in 500 grams of flour. Yes, I am correct. See, it's really easy to remember, but if you have a memory like a sieve, like me, just pop it in the fridge. You'll not forget any of the steps. So I just leave the spoon in there at that point, zero it again. I'm going to pop in organic strong white flour. You can use other flours, but be careful, it will not have the same consistency. You'll need to do things a little bit differently if you're getting more fussy, if you're going to do things like oat or you can use sweet potatoes and different things as well, which are really cool. But standard sourdough, I just use my rye starter and then organic strong white flour. So organic flour, really, really good for you. The reason I go for organic is because we get rid of all of those nasties that come from standard flour. So there's quite a lot of pesticides used when it comes to the growing of the wheat for the standard flour. So I don't buy everything organic, but there's some things that I do. And flour is one of them. There's also, if you're interested in that, looking up the Dirty Dozen. Those are the things to avoid when it comes to heavy pesticide use. And there's a good list out there as well of foods that you don't need to worry about too much as well. Usually things with wrappers on, like bananas and stuff like that. Anyway, I digress. I'm off on a tangent now about organic stuff. Yeah. If you're super rich and it's no problem for you, then you can buy everything organic. But if, like the rest of us, we just want to do our best, then flour, yes, and then other things. We can be a little bit more conscious of what we can get away with and what we don't. So, rye flour starter, really good for your insoluble and soluble fibres, your B vitamins, manganese, iron, all sorts of wonderful things in your starter. We've popped that in 150 grams, 300 grams of our filtered room temperature water, 500 grams of our organic white flour, and I'm now going to pop in 10 grams of salt. I'm just using ordinary salt today because it's all I've got. However, it's really good, again, just to use some really nice sources, like your pink Himalayan sea salt is really good for you. Lots in there. I'm just going to pop this scale away now. Lots in there, get lots of variety in there, as much good stuff in as you can. The good thing about making rye bread, so if you do decide to make some rye breads, is you can make some lovely seeded versions, put in some berries and different things in there as well. So just increasing the variety in your diet is really, really great too. And I assume you probably are interested in things like that if you're keen on making a sourdough as well, because it's all about taking care of ourselves and eating good things. So we've mixed all of that together and I'm just mushing it all in now, and it's quite sticky. So you might feel like, do you know what, I'm going to put more flour in there because it feels a wee bit sticky. Please don't do that. It's supposed to be sticky right now. Go with the exact measurements that I've given you, okay? I promise it will work. So people tend to stay away from sourdough a wee bit or get a little bit frightened because it seems like a lot of work to do. In actual fact, once you've done this, you can go away and get some stuff done. So yeah, you do need to come back and forth to it a wee bit, but it's not a difficult thing to do. So I've mushed all that together, and what I'm going to do now is just fold, fold, fold. So we do something called round the bowl 8 times. So you're spinning your bowl round. It's good to get maybe a wee marker on the bowl. You're spinning the bowl 8 times, and you just fold and fold and fold as you go. So take from one side and fold into the middle. Take from one side and fold into the middle. It's quite difficult just now because your dough's really, really sticky. However, it's going to get less sticky, less sticky, less sticky as it proves. So you want to do this a minimum of 4 times. So I'm going to leave it just now because it's super sticky. I'm going to come back to it when it's a little bit less sticky. A minimum of 4 times with a minimum of 10 minutes in between. So yeah, it's a wee bit of a process, but at the end of the day, you can do it whenever as well. You can take all day to do it. So if you start this in the morning, just get all that together, mix it in, and then we cover it up. Just going to wash my hands quickly. And then we cover it up and you leave it, and you maybe leave it for 10 minutes, or you might leave it for an hour or 2 hours, and then you just come back to it and you spin it again. So I have these little wax things. Excuse me, there's a toddler in this house, so we need to keep everything under magnetic lock. I have these little wax things that I put over my bowl, which I quite like. But you can just get a tea towel, anything at all. and just cover it up and try to stop as much air getting in there as possible. And then I'm just going to, as I said, I'll leave that for about 10 minutes, or depending on what I'm doing with my day, it could be an hour, whatever, as long as I come back to it minimum 4 times, and just do that process again of spinning it, going around the bowl 8 times essentially. You're just folding it over, folding it over, folding it over. Once you have done that, it goes into the fridge overnight. All right, so yes, it does take time, but you're not standing over it all of that time. So once I've done that 4 times in my day minimum, I then go and stick it in the fridge. And once I wake up the next day, I'll talk you through that process now. All right, so that'll get folded over, folded over, folded over. And then when I bring it out the next day, I have to prepare a little bit. So I'm going to set my oven to 220 degrees Celsius, and I pop this in the bottom of it. So a little bit of water into a pan, and that goes on the bottom so that we get a nice crust on the top. So we want a nice crust. Once I've popped that down the bottom, I line with baking paper, or you can get one of these funky things as well. So lining with something. Don't grease it, because what we're going to do is we're just going to take some flour, and it can be any flour at all. It can be your rye, it can be your organic white, and you're just going to pap that down here. And you actually, the only reason that I'm doing this fresh is because my husband's obsessed with cleaning it, but you don't really need to clean this in between either. You can just keep adding a little bit of flour to it each time, but it can be your sourdough thing, and the messier the better when it comes to sourdough. So I typically don't tend to clean that, but my husband likes to come in and clean all of the things. So that's all ready to go. My pan's in there, it's at 220 as I said. The water's there so we get a nice crust. In the morning I take this out and I plump it onto there, and I just shape it how I want to shape it. And you can put a wee score through it if you want to get that flap that everyone goes on about, but really it doesn't make a difference to the taste, so whatever. So once it goes on, you're just popping it in, half an hour, easy peasy. So super, so simple. Please go and have a little shot at that. You will love your sourdough. I promise it's delicious. Do not mess about with the quantities. If it feels sticky, if it feels anything, I promise you these quantities are perfect. So I'm going to rattle that out again, all right, really quickly in case you missed anything. So initially you get 150 grams of your starter. Make sure you've fed it the night before. It comes out the night before. Take 150 grams from it, put it back in the fridge. Done. 150 grams goes into your bowl. 300 grams of filtered room temperature water goes in, give it a nice wee mix, then pop in your 500 grams of preferably organic white flour, but if that's not for you, just white flour is fine, not self-raising. Okay, just standard white flour. And then 10 grams of salt. Kneading that all together, essentially, going around the bowl your 8 times, and then after that, just leaving it to rest. And then going around the bowl, leave it to rest, going around the bowl, leave it to rest. So you want to go around the bowl minimum 4 times, and then pop it straight into your fridge and leave it overnight, and it's going to do its thing. Next morning, we're going to take it out, water into your pan, so we get a crust, plop your mixture on, shape it how you want it to be. It'll probably have taken a bit of a shape of your bowl, and then just reshape it. If you want that fancy stuff, cut it diagonally across, and then pop it in at 220 for half an hour, and you are never going to look back. So good luck with that. Enjoy.